Please welcome, also appearing in Ghost Town Volume 2, Meredith Stewart.
All right, thank you, Chris and Tony, for having me and for publishing my poem in your book. It's quite wonderful. This poem is called Under the Speed Limit. The harsh sounds of my unused Spanish on a night when the dust hovers in the air, clouding out the more distant buildings, reminds me of all the things that fall short, that have fallen short. The pants I had to wear that barely touched my ankles, the evening walk by the Willamette River, where everything was right, except I only almost loved him. I want to be driving in a clear-aired desert, when a friend's hand rests on my shoulder, and we keep driving until we get to a place with no memories, no currents, nothing, but new grass growing free from trees blocking out the sun, or the need of sprinklers. I could make plants grow. I know I could be a gardener. I know if we never get there, I could love seeing scenes with the top down, passing power lines and resistant rock. No other voices in my head but one, and it is laughing and makes me want to laugh too. Then there would be the porches we'd pass, people sitting at the end of day, the waitress who memorized our order but then forgot the pancakes. If we wanted, we could have pancakes every evening, wherever we were, without feeling it a vice or wishing we were more well-rounded. Maple flavor lingering, maybe I'd fall asleep, maybe I wouldn't. Either way, we will go, we are already gone. We will be gone forever and still make it back before the dust rises in daylight. Another cloud with no rain.
Volume 2 is dedicated to two people who we've lost, and one of those people was Jack McCarthy, who's simply one of the best people who's ever done this or tried to do this that I've ever seen. And he was kind enough to describe Ghost Town Poetry Open Mic as the best open mic between Tacoma and Berkeley, which I thought was really cool. So I asked him if it was okay for me to share that with other people, and he said yes. So that quote appears on the back of Ghost Town Volume 1. So he really was. I mean, go online and check out some of what he's done, and we're really pleased to have Carol McCarthy here now as a part of this community, and really just appreciate the fact that she's doing that hard work of keeping Jack's work alive. So the book is partly dedicated to him, and we, happy to have her here with us, Carol McCarthy.
I came from Seattle, and when I first got here, Chris and I got together, and he gave me such a wonderful welcome. I've heard that tonight. That happened to another person. And invited me to come and just told me how pleased he was that Jack had been a part of the first anthology, and I'm very pleased, and I know he would be, that he's a part of the second anthology. And we have a beautiful tribute here at the beginning about Jack, and I'll just read what is said here. Generous genius, spoken word icon, amazing talent, proud husband and father, and beautiful soul are a few of the ways we can describe Jack. A prolific, supportive mentor who loved to reach out and touch poetry firmly and gently with word caresses. Jack dedicated his life to the word. His work inspired so many and has left us with an empty space that we are unable to fill. Meeting Jack was like catching up with an old friend and picking up the conversation where it left off, never missing a beat. He was forever generous with feedback, always honest, and willing to bring new poets into the light. Oh, Jack, your words and spirit live on in so many of us. So that's just very, very beautiful. And it was hard to pick a poem. I talked with Kathleen, who was a big part of Jack's poetry. She was the one that got the first computer to Jack. and she helped him with his website, and she went to many of his readings, and he wrote about her a great deal also. The other two daughters were a little hesitant to get involved, and were hoping that Jack wouldn't write too much about them. I think now they wish maybe he wrote more. But Kathleen, she loved having that attention. And so there's a beautiful little quote here about what Kathleen said about the poem that we finally chose, which was a poem about a hawk. Jack loved hawks. And it's very interesting that when we went to spread Jack's ashes, he wanted those to be spread in the Blue Hills in Boston area. And we went to the top of this mountain and a hawk flew over right as it happened. Gives me goosebumps to think it. And for Kathleen, she has seen hawks outside her home in pretty close to downtown Boston, more than she's ever seen them. And so, you know, I just think hawks are magic, and I'm glad that we chose that poem. So this is what Kathleen said, and this is all in quotes. This one is a favorite of mine. It brought tears when he wrote it in 1993, and boy does it bring them now. It's also worth noting that since he passed, I've seen hawks in the oddest places. A Fenway hawk. If you know anything about Jack, he loved Boston and the Boston Red Sox. And he had said, if I could, I would spread my ashes in Fenway Park. So there was Fenway Hawk. A week after he passed, at the Charlestown Navy Yard after the marathon bombings, by the pool on Cape Cod, when I was thinking how wonderful life was with my sons and my husband, on Thompson Island in the Boston Harbor Islands, in one of my first days working there. It goes on and on. I almost know he'll be there when I look up. Thank you so much for honoring him with your dedication. So this is actually Jack's introduction, if he were right here, to this poem. Introduction to the poem by Jack McCarthy. It was one of those crystalline January days that can be so cold, the kind of day when you see hawks sitting in trees along the Mass Pike, facing into the sun. I was driving my daughter Kathleen back to college, and from time to time I'd point out the kind of tree a hawk would like to sit in. After 3 or 4 trees, she asked, "What is this thing with hawks? Do you think you were a hawk in a previous life or something?" I smiled and said, "Perhaps," and talked no more of hawks. But on the long ride home alone, I decided she was almost right, that I'll come back as a hawk, by Jack McCarthy. So this is the poem. And maybe someday, as I drift upon an updraft, the top of your blonde head will catch my eye. Maybe as you jog along a country road, and my hawk heart will pump a simple, unfamiliar signal. Not kill and eat, although there's something in it like my feeling for the prey, that it was good to kill and good to eat, but that it's over now. Not sleep because the sun's still high, and there is something in it that is like sleep. Not mate because it's not that time, there is no other hawk in sight. Not feed your young because I have no young to feed. Yet there is something in it about mating, about young, not fly great distances across the path of sun, because I'm where I'm at till I get cold. Still, there is something of great distances about it. Not play at aerobatics with a raven, although there is something in it about with. Requiring no action, it will be gone as quickly as it came, and being hawk, I'll never think of it again. A shadow passing on the edge of consciousness might nudge you to glance up, and squinting in the sun, you'll see me, dark and sharp, motionless but exquisitely mobile, sliding sideways down the bright blue sky, your young blue eyes discerning separation of the feathers in my wingtips. Any remembering will be done by you. For Valentine's Day, Jack was written up in the Phoenix as the best love poet, not the best loved poet. And he just loved love. And I feel like celebrating relationship is so important, because I know I learned so much about love, and Jack did too, by having this incredible relationship that we had for 23 years. And so it's such an important, exciting thing. We used to say, I wish people would know how great it could be. You know, that it's such a powerful thing. And that love is all around us, and it's just one way of really learning about that. And Martin Luther King Jr., you know, he said love is the way. So, I mean, it just keeps coming back to that. And I heard a lot about that tonight also, for all people, everywhere.
Thank you for that, and we're, so glad too that Jack's going to be honored next week at Paper Tiger. So you'll get to hear some more from Carol, and I'm assuming that part of that evening is going to be people reading some of Jack's poetry, right? So
Yes, and we're going to do his A-list, which we haven't always done here. So
his A-list, all
his
right.
A-list.
His A-list is pretty good. So bring your best poetry next week, Wednesday at Paper Tiger here in Vancouver. Okay, next we're going to hear from one of our old friends, previous feature here, the author of 2 great books of poetry, and in both volumes of Ghost Town Poetry, Eileen Elliott.
All right.
I don't know if anybody noticed, but we've had some snow and some cold weather. And of course, that's right down my lane, being from the Midwest. And so I wanted to read some strong place poems, very short ones, and then another one about cold, but cold of the heart and cold of the soul, more than that. So a few short ones. Great Plains winter. The ice drips on days of sunshine. A rattling shudder skips across dry stalks. A lost sigh. A strangled breath. Cold days strung out. Each follows the other. The next one is called Winter Gardening. Dahlias and iris, fragile memories on this December day. Snow swirls in the rock garden, defeats reckless optimism. I settle down, 3 months short of seed catalogs, draw pencil lines on grid paper, lay out next summer. I tend other things now until the snow goes. Write. I'm hesitant, unsure, shyly pop out words, unfold poem leaves. An Iowa radish seed exploded into the light. There is no other way. This is called False Promise. Brave little lilac buds wait for a north breeze to shake off last night's snowflakes. Ice invades the still, tight, waxy brown sepals, yet they remain perched, optimistic, like fresh scrubbed farm boys at a Saturday night dance. This is called X-rays and Shades of Gray. Ice laid down by visiting fog makes nodding acquaintance with each tiny twig, too fragile to protest the intrusion. A ghostly forest stretches stark branches. Trees twist in a skeleton dance as the sun dallies elsewhere, not even bothering to phone in an apology. This last one is about the other kind of cold. Weather report, cold. Feels cold today, but it's been colder. Blue norther cold, like when Grandma died. Cold, like walking home in sleet when the cards were running good. Cold, like upstairs rooms and mattress buttons. Cold, like back east phone calls at 2 a.m. Cold, like no sunshine for months and the moose go crazy. Kitchen floors, no milk, crying babies. Midnight steering wheels, no one to go home to. Pictures of you with her under your Bible. Yes, it's been colder, but not by much.
Thanks, Irene. The other dedication in the book is to our dear friend Dries Martin, who we miss very much. And Dries and her husband Jim have been part of this since the very beginning, and they both mean a lot to us, so it was really a no-brainer to dedicate this book to her. So please welcome our friend Jim Martin.
This isn't my copy. I had to wore it from raining. I'm hyperactive. All through my school career, I was always on the honor roll, and I was always after school. I never get it right. I'd like to read the dedication to Dries and a very short poem of hers. Dries was born February 23, 1936. And died July 12, 2011. She died instantly. A little piece in her brainstem didn't work, and her heart just stopped, her breathing stopped, which was really good for her. She was scared to death of extended illness. And I foolishly promised when we knew we were living together that I would die last. And that all worked out, but she didn't get the math right. We had 20 more years, so she's going to hear about that. Dries Martin, wife of Jim Martin, and bright light to all who knew her, brought the ghost town community lively stories and much laughter. We were entertained and delighted with her tale of Tiggy the cat, who found adventure in the oddest of places. Tiggy was as thoughtful and philosophical as Dries, and at times we had to wonder if these adventures were a clever snapshot of Dries' life. They may well have been. They came from her childhood, certainly. Combined with her riddles, infectious smile, and lilting voice with a Queen's accent, Betty predicted. We were the privileged ones. We miss her deeply. Jewels of the Night by Dries Martin. As Tiggy loved to count the clouds in the early afternoons, at night he watched the stars, and he wondered if the sun now shone upon the moon. Or was the moon itself a light, a great lantern hung up high, to light the lands below as it shone down from the sky? Hours passed him by as he thought about it all. But who could put it there? How could it be hung? And if not hung, what held it up? Why did it not fall? Unless it wasn't that at all. Perhaps the moon was just a huge yellow balloon, blown far up by turret winds and far away. Yet again, thought Tig, if so far away, why was it so big? He thought about the moon as he thought about the sun and about most things. Excuse me. Pondering on each thought till another one would come. There was no end to thinking, and at heart he knew there was no better thing to do. Whether one was right or wrong, or just a little right, or a wee bit wrong, what mattered was to do it. And that was Dries. And this is mine, somewhere in the middle of the book, Jim Martin. Quiet. Quiet, at peace with the world, trees. Their trunks bathed in the soft texture of spring grasses, hold this hill in place and dream their gentle dreams. Close, I am at peace with them and their world, and with the knowledge that cells and tissues in my brain, crafted by millennia, see the trees and think this thought. Thoughts like these go not quiet into a world of thinkers and believers. Those who veil deep within them the fear that we are of this earth, that what we see and feel and think has been felt by others nearly like us long, long ago. And then I have one short one. David Nelson, a couple of months ago, had a line in a poem that he wrote that was an exposition on poetry. And the line was, perhaps poetry is the space between the finger and the moon. And he's talking about a finger pointing at the moon. The poem is not the finger. The poem is not the moon. It is the space. And there's much in my thinking over the last 40 years that came together. Thank you. Thank you. Finger points, target silver and black winter sky, pointed with meaning, vision expressed in juxtaposition between pointing finger and light. Our spirit, expression, eternity of the human soul. Finger, vision, momentary realities. Spirit resides in what they do not encompass. Thank you.
So we put a lot of energy into these words, and that energy resides in them, and so even when we're gone, our words remain, and so we remain through them. Yeah. I mean, it's something that I think a lot, but I learn a lot from doing this and being part of this community, and you never know which messages are coming on which night, but it feels like all of them all at once, which is a really nice way of being overwhelmed once a month. And so one of the other things that I've learned from the Ghost Town community, and we've been all ages and uncensored from the beginning, before we even had a name for the thing, is that it's never too late to get started doing this thing of trying to write poetry, and it's never too late to decide to step up and say, I am a poet. So someone who might have only recently decided to own being a poet, but I think has been a poet for many, many years, my friend, George Thomas.
2 months ago, I said I was going to start going through this book, about 6 poems at a time. They're 8-line poems. But that would not be for today. And last month I wasn't here because we had family visiting, my wife's parents, and they are far from being poetic people. So I didn't want to bring them in to this session. They're lovely people. They're lovely people. So I'm going to. But then I realized that the next poem I would have read relates to the poem that's in the book, in Ghost Town. And the thing about this is, this poem that was in this book, I wrote after my 3rd divorce, and I was living in this old beat-up farmhouse on the edge of Cheney. And I was going to all kinds of counseling, group encounter sessions in the Huckleberry Mountains, all kinds of searching out to figure out why I was such a screwed up alcoholic all my life, and why I couldn't have a good relationship with a woman. And I have one now, my wife, and we are soulmates, and it's wonderful. And I didn't think I'd ever have it. So this one is a poem that came in more of angst. And then this one I'll read at last. It's only 8 lines. Is kind of a more humorous look at poetry. Early November, the poet's ear. Poetry doesn't seem so very important when the first snow flies in autumn and there's a heating bill to pay and you're cold. When the man up the road's dying of cancer and you love him. Poetry's not important at all when the latest X is full of bitterness, bred of your neglect and your concentration on your art to her exclusion. And what is poetry when you've lost the chance to raise a lovely daughter day by day, or carry the shame of sons abandoned long ago with another X in a blind decision you called freedom, selfishness, loss. So why continue scribbling these pen tracks on blank white sheets like the dribbles of a spent cock? To put your name in a book, in some lit book nobody reads, that most people shun as dull and pointless, as profitless? To make a name among the nameless? To joust with giants, only you make giants in your fevered brain? Not one good, damn, logical, reasonable reason to continue in this way, with this waste of life and sense, this frantic scribbling on this cave of paper wall with a charcoal stick. Why? If I knew why, then I'd know how to stop. Know how to lay down this instrument of loss and leaving and be still. Let go the constant surrendering to the inevitable rush of words that come to fill my head, my world, with light and loveliness and the beauty of the human voice, chanting spells aloud that transform winter into the mystery of death, or red berries to drops of blood in the white snow of remembrance, sound that changes pain and fear into strength and hope. All that noise which is the impulse of instinct, stumbling over the blind tongue into the world of sight. And then I think healthier. As for me, I delight in the everyday way. Waking, brushing my teeth, going off to work, the lovely snarl of traffic and gentle drivers, the refreshing mountains of polluted air, the roads to work varied and twisted, accessible and easily traveled on rubber sandals from Akron. If I'm lucky, I get through the day with my senses intact. The angry genie of America will leave one of these utterances for me to find on my pillow some mornings when I wake.
Thank you, George. I'd like to introduce another person that is in Ghost Town Volume 2. I know her from our work on Voice Catcher, our editing work together, Sidra Grace Quinn. Hello. I really appreciated Gwendolyn's reminder that we do not come to this writing alone. And so with that, I would love to thank Tony and Christopher for not only including me, but for always being such great stewards of art and poetry. It's so inspiring. But I think a part of that is you as well, the audience. Anytime I've ever come here, I really leave inspired, wanting to go home and write. And you know, I have a really wise friend who says that we suffer the most when we have the illusion of separateness. And so I just want to thank you for shattering that illusion for me, and I'm sure for many others. So, and actually, think the idea of thanking someone. I wrote this poem at a day I was sitting in silence with a group of women writers who are all, you know, penning wonderful, amazing words, and I was sitting there saying, I have nothing to write. So I just picked a book out of my bag and was inspired by a line, and when this poem was about to be published for the first time, I searched high and low to find the poem that inspired me, because I literally took verbatim a line, and I never have found the poem again. But so I talked with the editor, and we agreed that just a very nice thank you I wasn't so worried about being sued, although I suppose that could be part of it, but just really showing my gratitude for the inspiration for this poem. So I know that someday that poem will come back to me and I'll be able to thank that poet in writing or in person. So this is called Standing In for Love. To feel grief not your own, you must first wipe the steam from the back window of your parents' car as your sister and Johnny Barlow scramble into his pink Dodge Dart. You watch as they drive off and imagine them speeding onto the back road, the one with potholes as large as lakes, gravel hitting the underside of the car like music. You see your sister's hand on Johnny Barlow's knee and the peekaboo of teeth between her coral lips. You smell exhaust fumes, sweat, melting hairspray, and an odor you won't recognize until years later in the back of some car with a boy whose hair is as black as Johnny's was then. The scent of longing and lust and what stands in for love when it's given to a boy with tin cans on his soul. The day you stop saying no because yes feels easier. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to hear next from Daniel Gilchrist, better known as DeBat. Come on up, DeBat.
Wanted to thank Tony and Christopher and including me in the book, and then all the things they do in the art community, not just supporting the poetry community, but the art community in general and the galleries of Vancouver, and just trying to inspire people to be more creative every day of their lives. So the poem that I have in the book here is called Don't Be. Turning point, point of no return, last chance, chance not taken, moment gone, gone with the consensus. Just because you're one of the sheep, don't be. And then just one more real quick one. I wrote this 20 years plus ago, and before there was the internets and the interwebs and the Facebooks and the smartphones and all the things we can't live without. The end of this poem is Blow My Mind. Blow my mind if you can. I'm over-entertained and I'm borderline insane. I'm a slave to the scene known as the magic screen. Well, if the pictures are clear, then who's out of focus here? Stop it now before it's too late. So out of control, no one can relate. It's gone on too long, the insipid washing of my brain, with everything to lose and nothing to gain. It's hard to understand what is the plan. Come on now, blow my mind if you think you can.
Okay, next we are going to hear from someone that folks wait for every month because he brings something entertaining, thoughtful, I have this list in my head, philosophical, and funny. Dennis McBride.
Oh, dear.
Old stuff. Truth is not needed, but something is. I thought I'd share this CNN News Bulletin with you, for those of you who missed it. In a shocking announcement today at the World Science Conference in Copenhagen, scientists from the world's 12 leading research institutes released a joint statement revealing the findings of a study drawn from over 3 million years of data, which concludes that reality contains a lethal element that will eventually prove fatal to everyone. They're adding to the periodic table under the name ignoranium. The findings were presented to a startled audience of government officials and news correspondents. Scientists have long been puzzled as to why the standards for reality are so low. Why, for example, Homo sapiens should be so technologically advanced and yet, by any standard of civilization, remain so far behind. For example, the bonobo monkeys of East Africa, who've managed to effortlessly substitute sexual play activity and socialization for competition, conflict, and war. Or how a leading world power can pass its country back and forth from one family dynasty to another, from the Roosevelts to the Kennedys to the Bushes, and convince its citizens it's a democracy. Not to mention how it can change its mind every 4 years about what direction it wants to go. Or even the largest and most challenging mystery of how the human mind, which is capable of producing an Einstein or a Mozart, can be rendered inert and virtually destroyed by putting any kind of uniform on it. As one scientist was quoted as saying, as clearly remarkable as it is, reality doesn't seem to have been really thought through in advance. Now, with the discovery of ignoranium, scientists are hopeful of finding answers. They say the new element has already been linked to connections between aging, diminished immune activity, herd instincts and voting patterns, and the blissful ignorance of cows and the nightly TV news that the nightly TV news anchors exhibit. Dr. Bruce Morrissey, the director of the CDC, went on to say, in a tone of slightly self-conscious embarrassment, that the only methods of treatment to have proved any effectiveness in reducing the severity of the symptoms of this syndrome have been marijuana, laughter, sex, and occasionally love. He went on to say that love has proven ultimately unreliable due to its mysterious origins, which result in unpredictable patterns of development or prognosis, adding that a now you see it, now you don't antidote is not advisable as a therapeutic modality. Dr. Morrissey said the CDC is referring to this new illness as CARDS, C-A-R-D-S, for chronic and acute reality disease syndrome. And the CDC is issuing a warning to everyone try to limit their exposure to the chief carriers of this disease, which seems to spread most rapidly among political parties, formal religions, authors of optimistic self-help books, motivational speakers, and also grown-ups who believe they have completely left high school. The CDC advises that contact with any of these groups should be kept to a minimum. It has further advised that crop circles and crop circle researchers should be considered highly suspect until there has been some evidence of either cartoons or dirty jokes in actual crop circles. I would say that there has been some hopeful research recently among groups that tend to show increased resistance to this disease. These groups include vagrants, people who have enjoyed losing their virginity. However, those who are trying to lose it for the second time should be avoided, as they tend to be acutely serious. Freelance transients and loiterers, clowns, circus midgets, most transsexuals, laughing hyenas, possums, flying squirrels, and porn stars. Okay, that's enough of both. Interested in bad poems, so I just threw down a bad poem here. It's called Advice. Do not be here now. Now and here is the most dangerous place you can be, because that is where the experience happens to you. Be anywhere but there. Anywhere but here now. Even be cautious of then, there. Be someplace else, any place, anywhere else but here and now. Anywhere that is not nearby to here and now. Far away from where you are, now, here. Where our theological psychologies are feeding the emergency monsters. Go behind the moon, beyond the sky. Go at night when the dancing man in the dark stops by your bed to take you walking, and you walk together into the steepness of shadows, down the paths of the mist world, into the safe, soft, dark heart of the forest. Or hide in an adjacent star system like Peoria, Illinois, or Austin, Texas, or some other similar lab that are conducting double-blind studies. Just be any place where you can have experiences before you have them, or after you have them. Where you don't have to have your experiences when you have them, unless you have a very limited imagination or a weak grasp of event, or in a kind of waking or walking coma. And when your dad and the coach throws you the dumb, inert basket, foot, or baseball, and gives you the flag and the gun to protect it with that they got at the multi-level marketing meeting, put the gun and the flag in the garbage can on your way out the door to your mental illness appointment, which you should be very late for, late enough really, so you don't even have to be there. Satellite. Last night I turned out the lights and went outside under 1,000 stars. I looked up to see one moving, but no, it was not a falling star, just us looking down at us. Maybe the God that talks to some will talk to me tonight, now, but no, there was only the satellite and me and the stars, which we keep looking at and can understand and don't need to. Close with Valentine. The brain craves mostly sugar and oxygen, and the mind just wants to know. But the heart departs and circles and then returns to you, your face, your soft, open, and warm pink center, red center.
Thank you.
Dennis. And I wanted to thank Dennis also for writing the introduction to the book. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure to read it, and I read it more than once, and I enjoy it every time. Thank you so much. We really
I'll pay you
appreciate
later.
it. No, we'll pay you later. Okay, and the last reader, this is not the last reader for tonight, the last reader from Ghost Town Volume 2 is Mike G. Come on up, Mike.
Thank you, Tony and Chris, for everything you do. Will you guys be my Valentine?
Absolutely.
I write to have fun. That's the only reason why I write, so I'll share a new fun poem with you guys. Was recently featured at a reading, and they had a theme, and it was new beginnings. So we had to write on a theme. So this is what I came up with. The new beginning again feels like cunnilingus towards spring, libido of middle age raging like a final apocalyptic exclamation point. I live, shouts the genital scripture, page 69 plus tax refund. All the smarmy hipsters skateboarding to Montana, thank gods, leaving we the literary cosmologists to scribble in peace. The new beginning's like a poem. It comes naturally like cancer or pregnancy. The new beginning feels like Pluto's ass pummeled the planetoid status, feels like crawling concrete bruised with mind crippled by economy friends, while the whitest black on the planet preaches hope for votes and plays peekaboo I see you powerless piece of shit with his spy cams. The new beginning comes with sore guts, emphysematous cough, disposable, dispensable humans hankering to die from the quickie set me free from this farce cancer of the everything. The new beginning's a never-ending writing practice of jerking off to the glory days when the penis pumped the I'm a man gospel, happy as a clam with non-doddering parents, though they hang whole crops of clams on wires before the appetizer harvest, so I wonder how happy those poor fucks really are. The new beginning begins with an impossible prompt called "You got a half hour to pretend the world isn't dying." Isn't really dying this time, not like it wasn't really dying in the 1970s or during the Holocaust, or when the Romans raped the rabbis through the glory holes of God's holy temple, but why it isn't dying now in the land of 21st century drones and cyberbombing. I begin that piece with the Mayans' 2012 middle fingers and Madame Blavatsky burning her feet to cancel sex with a man on her wedding night. What a virgin! Laughing till she shits at our sewn-shut third eyes. Concluding with the world's never-dying dipshits of the never-happening apocalypse, it's always a new beginning. Just look at the grass, the sun, the rain, the somewhere grandmothers thanking us 1,000 times with their eyes for being alive, and children being children and dogs being dogs as always. The new beginning tastes like a child's mouth before the booze and the smoke and the puke and the piss and the sex and the shit of all the good and evil knowledge trees the mouth has tasted. BAM! Cue the ding-dong, the ding-a-ling's dead music. You'll never get laid again, the 10-year-old neighbor girl said. Never had such a goddamn hoot not getting laid in my life, I said. The new beginning's an article in Time magazine called, "Can Google Solve Death?" The answer will probably turn out to be yes to the alpha humans who can afford it. As for me, doggy paddling with a Charlie horse the ocean called poverty line, I'd rather die naturally than slave citizen star my way on planet Google with the 90 IQ camp masters barking, "Hurry up and eat your fucking soup and get back to work." New beginning planet Google, the used condom of the rich, lodged deep in the asses of we the poor who can't compete with teenagers for jobs because we can't afford to get our teeth cleaned because the game is rigged that way. The new beginning feels like it's an emergency. We need more joy in our lives. Put your taxes down and dance. Responsibility implies the ability to respond, and you can't respond if you're catatonic from fear. Everyone's fucked. Who cares? Dance. Or be a good little drone. Do your push-ups, push a button, and kill somebody. Half hour later, eat dinner with your family. It's your new beginning. But really, really the best new beginning news of all is India freeing the entertainment industry dolphins, recognizing dolphins as non-human persons, declaring that cetaceans deserve a Bill of Rights, the right to be left alone. And finally, there's the 2014 Puppy Bowl to consider. Rather than score a touchdown, Puddles the poodle simply licked her asshole and ate a cookie like Buddha or Jesus might have done.